2 chapters today. That would be Mayhem at the Ministry and Aboard the Hogwarts Express. Transition chapters, in truth. We are going from everything that happened at the World Cup to Hogwarts. But we can't really just skip there. It's going to be too jarring if we do that. We need our liminal period, and that is specifically the train ride into Hogwarts. This is our transition time, not just for the characters, but for the readers as well. It gives us an idea of some normalcy that we can expect. Insofar as normal for Harry at Hogwarts, it's probably not normal at all. But it's certainly different. But Mayhem at the Ministry is also sort of helping us change our viewpoints. We're going from this frightening situation to the response to it, to then having to move past it. And we get all the little flaws with it. We get how the media is going for the panic rather than the facts. We get the concern of that families are feeling in this realm of panic. We are getting the sheer amount of work that's required to respond to a situation like this. And all of this is helping us see the world around Harry more fully. It's not just that it's Harry and his friends that are concerned. Because that's sort of the feeling we get with the earlier ones. It really does seem to be tracking Harry and his problems. And this is the transition period that's saying, you know what? These problems might be a little broader. Harry might certainly be involved, but it's not just up to Harry and his friends. We do have the Ministry involved. We do have media involved. We have other sections of students and young adults and older adults all put together. And this is what I find interesting about the Weasley clock that's actually mentioned here, is it gives you this idea that everything is connected, yet we're all each individual people. No man is an island. And as much as in a panic like this, where we want to remain calm, it's hard to, when you're connected to everybody else. You can't control everything that's going on, or everyone's responses to it. You can only control your own. And that's coming across really powerfully in these chapters. It's bits and pieces just flying at us, and it's a question of what can we control in this moment? Well, we can control our responses, and that is it. And it's a question of making that worth it. Harry is aiming to control his responses as much as he can. He knows that he wants answers about his scar, so he's paying attention to what's going to assist him with that. There is nothing he can do about what happened at the I almost said the Triwizard Tournament. That's coming up, and he's going to have to control his responses on that one, but not everything. At the Quidditch World Cup, he can't control what has happened about the Death Eaters or the Dark Mark. He controls his response, so his focus is on his Hedwig come with the mail. That's what his focus has got to be on. He's got to figure out how he can take care of himself and those around him first, before he can then understand everything that is happening. The other thing about these set of chapters is they also give you an idea that while these are transition chapters, you have to keep them interesting. There is actually quite a lot of explanations in these chapters. You get a lot of exposition, but you can't just No one wants But these set of chapters are actually, while filled with information and moving us along specifically to Hogwarts, while not necessarily seeming to move the plot along, we are getting bits and pieces of of information that's going to keep us reading. But we're actually getting, right now I've got it divided up into 4 types of information. We are getting the unimportant / red herring information. We are getting the world building information. We are getting this will be important in the short term, and by short term I'm going with it will be important in this particular book. And then we get it will be important in the long term type of information. And then there are bits and pieces that are actually sort of bridging the gap here. When we talked about red herrings previously, we had the discussion about trying to tell what is important and what is not. And these chapters really are building up that idea. We are getting hints of something that is going on that will be important to this book, specifically, of course, the Triwizard Tournament. But the information is also helping with the world building, because we've got a discussion of Durmstrang and what that wizarding school is and where it is and what it does. So we might be tempted to slot that into, oh, that's just the world building, like the other schools mentioned in during the World Cup. Beauxbatons and the Salem Witch Institute. So we could slot that in there and say, okay, that's world building. And suddenly we have the Triwizard Tournament where Beauxbatons and Durmstrang have shown up, and you're just like, okay, maybe I was incorrect about that. But then we get things like Moody and his attacking dustbins. And everybody's so willing to write this off that we sort of get tempted to do it too. Because obviously if these adults are not concerned, why would we be? That's one of the interesting hints we actually get in these chapters, is Moody has done much for the wizarding government previously. Which means obviously when he breaks the laws, it's okay. Dumbledore vouches for him, so it's okay. No, it's not. You're willing to take his personality and say, he's quirky, so it's fine. No, it's not. If somebody had investigated this situation, like more in depth, not just swept it under the rug, maybe they would have realized that that is not in fact Moody, and in fact he was under attack. There is a reason that everyone in the government is supposed to be susceptible to the laws of that government. It's to prevent things like this happening. It's to prevent somebody taking advantage of their position to do what they want. But it's also to protect them. But it gets swept under the rug, and suddenly you're just like, oh, maybe that's one of those red herrings and it's not important. Actually, it is. We are hitting moments where we are getting enough information that we want to write a lot of it off. And say, in the long term, that's not important. Yes, it is. We are so focused on what everyone is hinting at, the Triwizard Tournament, and the fact that we know Voldemort is around, that we are missing the smaller things that could be just as dangerous. And I'm not just talking about the fact that it's Barty Crouch Jr. who's taking Moody's place. I am talking about the fact that even if Moody is Moody, that the government is willing to just write that off. Because that is one of the big problems in the long run. The government is willing to write a lot of things off because the ministry doesn't want to face it. And that's going to cause a lot of problems because Voldemort's able to actually get in there, and he doesn't destroy the ministry. He subverts it. And somehow that's not a surprise in rereading things. It's not a military takeover. It is just the switching out of a few people in an already very flawed and corrupt ministry. So while we're looking for the information that is probably important in the short term, we are missing what is probably, possibly even more important, which is the information that is necessary for our understanding in the long term. But it's not just us. These guys are going into their 4th year, but they're still students, so I think they can be forgiven. But some of these adults need to wake up and figure things out. Or at least be willing to admit that they don't know everything. And ask for help. Because that is the hard thing for adults to do. Ask for help. It's important, guys. Be willing to ask. Because you can't possibly know everything. But other people know things that you don't know. And if we work together, we will get through this. Including the tournament. Oh, that's going to be an interesting chapter coming up. Okay. So that was a couple transition chapters with a lot of information. And then we're going to start getting into the meat of our school year, because we've finally actually gotten to Hogwarts. And it's starting out stormy. Wonder if that's a hint. Until then, I'm going to keep reading, and I hope you do too. See you next time.